Tata. Good morning, everyone. So, today we are going to discuss the benign lesions of larynx. But before going into the today's topic, I want to again revise what I have discussed previously. So, please answer to my questions. Am I audible to everybody? Am I audible? Any difficulty? Okay. So, what is the most common type of CA esophagus? What is the most common type of carcinoma esophagus? Is it squamous cell carcinoma or adenocarcinoma? What is the most common type? Please answer. What's the most common type of CA esophagus? Yes, excellent. So, what is the most common site of squamous cell carcinoma? What is the most common type? Site. Middle 1/3. Excellent. What is the most common site of adenocarcinoma esophagus? Most common site. Most common site. Lower 1/3. So, what are the risk factors of adenocarcinoma of esophagus? What are the risk factors? What risk factors you know regarding the adenocarcinoma of esophagus? Most common site, location, for lower 1/3. GERD, scleroderma. Why there is adenocarcinoma in scleroderma? Why there is adenocarcinoma in scleroderma? This fibrosis of the muscle layer, which causes incompetence of the lower esophageal sphincter, which leads to GERD, and GERD will lead to adenocarcinoma esophagus. What is the type of carcinoma esophagus? In obesity. In obesity, what is the type of carcinoma esophagus? In obese patients, in obese people. This adenocarcinoma. Excellent. I have already said, in Western countries, the people are obese. The people are obese, and they are from high socio-economic class, high socio-economic people. They'll take large cups of coffee and large cups of alcohol, binge alcohol, and large cup of coffee. Along with it, they're obese. Coffee and drinks like thumbs up, and they're obese, which leads to gastroesophageal reflux, which will lead to adenocarcinoma esophagus. Yes or no? So, name the surgery of carcinoma esophagus in which cervix, thorax, and abdomen, the three are entered. That is laparotomy, thoracotomy, and cervical incision is given. Which type? Yes, Mackeown, not Mackeown, not Mackeown. It is Mackeown, MCKEOWN. All the three layers are entered. So, what is the most common site of metastasis of carcinoma esophagus? Where do carcinoma esophagus will spread? To what site? See, students, what I say now, no, wrong. What I say now, please remember. The carcinoma esophagus, JAT malignancies like carcinoma esophagus, carcinoma stomach, carcinoma colon, carcinoma ascending colon, carcinoma transverse colon, carcinoma descending colon, and up to rectum. The metastasis is to liver. So, carcinoma esophagus, carcinoma stomach, carcinoma ascending colon, carcinoma transverse colon, carcinoma descending colon, and up to rectum. The spread of the tumor is to liver. But when it comes to carcinoma annus, the carcinoma annus will spread via inferior hemorrhoidal vein or inferior rectal vein. It will move towards the inferior vena cava. From inferior vena cava to the right side of the heart, right atrium. From right atrium to right ventricle. From right ventricle to pulmonary artery, and it goes to lung. So, the spread of the carcinoma annus is to lung, whereas the spread from the colon, right colon, left colon, transverse colon, they are supplied by the superior mesenteric vein and inferior mesenteric vein, which are the branches of the portal vein. So, from the portal vein, it goes to liver. So your carcinoma transverse colon, carcinoma rectum, and carcinoma ascending colon, transverse colon, descending colon, they are supplied by mesenteric veins, which are branches of portal vein. So any malignancy from the colon will spread to the liver through portal vein. Okay. Whereas the anal canal is supplied by the inferior rectal vein or inferior hemorrhoidal vein, which will carry the tumor mets to the heart, from heart, right side of the heart, from right side of the heart to pulmonary arteries, so pulmonary metastasis. Pulmonary metastasis is a characteristic feature of carcinoma anal canal, whereas the carcinoma esophagus is supplied by the left gastric vein, which is a branch of portal vein. It's a branch of portal vein, which also drains into the liver. So carcinoma esophagus, carcinoma stomach, carcinoma ascending colon, carcinoma descending colon, carcinoma transverse colon, carcinoma rectum, all will spread via the portal vein to the liver, whereas the carcinoma anus will spread via the inferior vena cava to pulmonary vein artery to lung. So carcinoma anal canal will spread to the lung. And very, very important, how much margin of the esophagus, apart from the tumor, how much margin of the esophagus must be resected? Any answer? How much normal margin of the esophagus? Yes, excellent. All GA malignancies, the margin to be excised is 5 centimeters. The margin to be excised is 5 centimeters. Only 2 malignancies, that is carcinoma esophagus and carcinoma rectum, the both are exception. For carcinoma esophagus, you will remove 10 centimeters. But for carcinoma rectum, you will remove 2 centimeters. So all malignancies of the GAT, the normal margin must be 5 centimeters. But except the carcinoma esophagus, which will remove 10 centimeters, and carcinoma rectum will remove 2 centimeters. This is a very, very important technique. So you can answer any GAT malignancy by only knowing the few points. Yes or no? So the most common chemotherapy which we give both for carcinoma esophagus and for carcinoma stomach is ECF. What is ECF? E is for etoposide. C is for cisplatin. ECF. F is for 5-fluorouracil. But for carcinoma stomach and for carcinoma esophagus, the chemotherapy regimen is same, and it is ECF, etoposide, cisplatin, and 5-fluorouracil. 5-fluorouracil. Can anyone name Necros regimen? Necros. So, students, one more question I want to ask. Negros regimen is given for which GAT malignancy? Negros regimen. Carcinoma anal canal. So, now we'll come to our ENT topic, that is benign lesions of the larynx. So, when we come to the benign lesions of the larynx, this is a vocal cord. The vocal cord structure is made up of squamous epithelium. Squamous epithelium, it is made up of basement membrane, and the lamina propria is divided into 3 layers: the superficial layer, intermediate layer, and the deep layer of the lamina propria. And we have vocalis muscle. So can anyone say vocalis muscle is a division of which muscle? Vocalis muscle is a division of which muscle? Is it thyroerythroid, or is it icothyroid muscle, or it is posterior cricoarytenoid muscle? Which muscle gives rise to branch of vocalis muscle? Can anyone answer it? Can anyone? Excellent. It is thyroarytenoid muscle. Please remember, students, very, very important point, that thyroarytenoid muscle give rise to vocalis muscle. So vocalis muscle is a branch of thyroarytenoid muscle. Vocalis muscle is a branch of thyroarytenoid muscle. And they'll ask the question that Rinke space is a part of, is it a part of squamous epithelium? Is it a part of superficial layer of the lamina propria? Is it a part of deep layer of the lamina propria, or it is a part of vocalis muscle? So Rinke space is a space which is present in the superficial lamina propria. So Rinke space is a branch of superficial, is a part of superficial lamina propria. So now we'll discuss the classification of the lesions of the vocal cords. They are vocal nodules, vocal polyps, Rinke's edema, contact ulcer, intubation ulcer, leukoplakia, laryngocele, and saccular cyst and ductal cyst. So students, what you have to remember is all this will be asked as 2 marks questions. 2 marks question, and many PG entrance bits will be asked from this field, because this field is very, very important, and many short notes question or 2 marks question or PG entrance bits can maybe asked, will be asked, not maybe asked, will be asked from this part of lecture. Okay. So what is vocal nodule? So vocal nodules, the other name of vocal nodule is Singer's nodule. It's called as Singer's nodule, Screamer's nodule. What is Screamer's nodule? Who will scream? They'll get this nodules, which is called as Screamer's nodule. And teachers, this is a vocational disease. This is a vocational. It is what we say, this is related to occupational. So it is an occupational disease which is related to ENT. That is teacher's nodule. So can students, can you answer what are the other occupational disease in ENT? Occupational disease in ENT. Any occupational disease related to ENT? Any softwood workers? Softwood workers. What's the malignancy you can expect in softwood workers? I'm expecting answer from you. Softwood workers. Any malignancy? Softwood workers. What adenocarcinoma? Softwood workers. Any malignancy you can expect. So softwood workers will have a malignancy which is called as squamous cell carcinoma of paranasal sinus. So squamous cell carcinoma of paranasal sinus is a occupational malignancy which we'll see in ENT. So softwood workers will give rise to S for S. Softwood workers, S for S, squamous cell carcinoma of larynx is squamous cell carcinoma of the paranasal sinuses is because of softwood workers. So when we come to Singer's nodule, which is an occupational disease of larynx, which is also called as teacher's nodules. So it is seen in teachers which is an occupational disease. It is bilateral, symmetrical, and it is present at the junction of anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3. Why it is present at a junction of the anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3? Because maximum vibration of the vocal cords are present at the anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3. This part, maximum vibration of the vocal cords. So maximum vibration of the vocal cords are present at the junction of anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3. And because of this maximum vibration, there is maximum friction at the anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3, causing vocal nodules. So this vocal nodule is a localized lesion, whereas Rinke's edema is a generalized lesion. So vocal nodule is a localized disease. It is confined only to the location of anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3, but the vocal nodules are bilateral, symmetrical, and they are bilateral. Okay. The keypad is not working. బాబా కీప్యాడ్ వర్క్ చేయట్లేదు సర్లే నేను కర్సర్ వాడుకుంటాను ఓకే సో వాట్ ఆర్ ద pathogenesis of vocal nodule the pathogenesis of vocal nodule is stage of exudation so the clear fluid accumulates so what are the layers involved in a vocal nodule the layers involved in vocal nodules are epithelial layer and rinky space the rinky space is nothing but it is a superficial layer of the lamina propria. So epithelial layer and rinky space, the both are involved in vocal nodules. So the fluid accumulates in the rinky space. In the rinky space, that is called a stage of translation. What is the exudate? What is the translate? What is the exudate? What is the translate? Can anyone say? What is the exudate? What is the translate? You must know each and every word. So what is the exudate? What is the translate? If it is infected fluid, it is called as exudate. If it is non-infectious fluid, non-infected fluid, it is called as transudate. Okay. Exudate. Yes, excellent. The exudate has high rich of protein. Why it is high rich of protein? Because the exudate is infected fluid. So the exudate has more WBC. So because of more WBC cells, the proteins will be high. So I'll ask you, if it is pleural fluid because of liver failure or pleural fluid because of congestive heart failure, is it an exudate or transudate? Pleural fluid because of transudate. Excellent. Pleural fluid because of tuberculosis, is it exudate or transudate? Pleural fluid because of tuberculosis. TB, is it exudate or transudate? Exudate. Pleural fluid due to pneumonia, is it exudate or transudate? Due to pneumonia. Pneumonia is a bacterial infection. Is it exudate or transudate? It is exudate. Excellent. Excellent. What is the if there is a pleural fluid because of acute pancreatitis, is it exudate or transudate? It is not exudate, it is transudate. So pleural fluid because of acute pancreatitis and pleural fluid because of hypothyroidism will give rise to transudate type of pleural effusion. So this vocal nodule is a non-infectious state. It is non-infectious. It is not because of bacterial infection. It is not because of viral infection. It is because of vocal abuse. It is because of vocal abuse. Because of vocal abuse or because of screaming voice, there is rupture of the capillaries in the rinky space. So there is exudation of the fluid in the rinky space, which is nothing but it is a transudate fluid. It is not an exudative fluid. It is a transudate fluid. It is a clear fluid which does not have any infectious material. So in the early stage, there is a transudation of the fluid, and after that, there is later stage there is fibrosis formation. Fibrosis formation. So late stage there is fibrosis, and in the early stage there is transudate. So if you can see, I'll show you the image. This is the vocal nodule. The vocal nodule is because of outpouching of the epithelial layer, and it is because of outpouching of the rinky space. The fluid, this is the fluid in the rinky space. This rinky space fluid is pushing the epithelium medially. So it is because of involvement of the epithelium and the rinky space which is leading to the vocal nodule. So vocal nodule is a non-infectious. Vocal nodule is present bilateral symmetrical, and vocal nodule is present at the junction of anterior one-third and posterior two-third because of maximum vibration in that area, and it is a transudate fluid, clear fluid. So there are two stages: stage of transudate, which contains the clear fluid, and second one is stage of fibrosis. Because of that, the vocal nodule will become thick. So what are the symptoms? Whenever there is any disturbance between these vocal cords, it causes hoarseness of voice. So because of the vocal nodules, bilateral vocal nodules, the vocal cords, there is a defective in the approximation of the vocal cords, and the patient will complain of hoarseness of voice. He cannot increase the pitch of the voice. There will be hoarseness of the voice. So any laryngeal problems, what is the investigation of choice? The investigation of choice is, first we'll go for indirect laryngoscopy. The indirect laryngoscopy is a mirror. We'll insert the mirror into the oral cavity and we'll ask the patient to say E. What is A? What is E? E and eppudu anamanta patient ni A and eppudu anamanta. When you'll ask the patient to say A, When you ask the patient to say E. Can anyone? When we will ask the patient to say A. When we will ask the patient to say E, A or A, we'll ask the patient to say A or A. When we want to see the nasopharynx, we'll insert the mirror towards the nasopharynx through the oral cavity, and when we'll ask the patient to say A or E, the soft palate will get elevated, and we are able to see the nasopharyngeal structures like adenoids, posterior part of the septum, posterior part of the inferior turbinate, posterior part of the middle turbinate. So when we are using the nasopharynx, when we are using the nasopharyngeal scope, or when we are using the posterior rhinoscopy mirror, we'll ask the patient to say A or A. But when we want to see the adduction of the vocal cord, when we want to see the vocal cords coming close, and when we want to see the approximation of the vocal cord, we'll ask the patient to say E. That is to adduct the vocal cord. Adduct means add the vocal cord. But if we want to abduct the vocal cord, what you'll ask the patient to say? See, vocal cords have two mechanisms. Adduction of the vocal cord. Adduction means adding. Abduction of the vocal cords. If we want to see the vocal cord adduction, you'll ask the patient to say E. But I'm asking you the question. If I want to abduct the vocal cord, what I'll ask the patient to do? What mechanism I'll ask the patient to do? Can anyone answer the question? What I have to ask the patient to do? If you want to abduct the vocal cord, I'll ask the patient to take the deep breath. So deep breathing will abduct the vocal cord, whereas saying E will adduct the vocal cord. Adduct means adding. If I want to add the vocal cord, if I want to see the mechanism of phonation, I'll ask the patient to say E. But if I want to abduct, that means if you want to separate the vocal cord, I'll ask the patient to say take the deep breath, take the deep breathing. Okay. So I use the instruments like indirect laryngoscopy by using ideal mirror, and I'll use for confirmation, I'll use the instrument called as video laryngoscopy. I'll directly see the image in the television by using a direct laryngoscopy. I insert the image, but indirect laryngoscopy is by using the mirror. I'm seeing the reflection of the vocal cords in the mirror. So indirectly I'm saying, so it is called as indirect laryngoscope. If I insert the endoscope directly into the vocal cavity, it is called as direct laryngoscope. Okay. So this is the images of vocal nodules. It is present at the junction of anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3. This is the vocal nodules. So you are able to see the bilateral vocal nodules. Is it generalized or localized? It is a localized lesion. It is not generalized lesion. But in Rinke's edema, it is generalized lesion involving the whole vocal cord. But in vocal nodule, it is only a localized lesion confined to the junction of anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3. So these are the images of the vocal nodules. So what is the treatment? Any problem like your vocal polyps, vocal nodules, or Rinke's edema, the problem is because of raising the voice, speaking in high pitched voice, continuous talking, continuous speaking will cause this type of problem. So the absolute treatment is give voice rest. Tell him to talk only 20 minutes, less than 20 minutes per day, complete voice rest. And you give the vocal hygiene like mouth breathing, avoid mouth breathing, avoid smoking, avoid taking large cups of coffee or tea. Okay, and maintain proper hydration. That means you do steam inhalation. So this management, non-surgical treatment is common for everything, and the investigation is common for everything. That means for vocal nodule, vocal polyp, for Rinke's edema, the treatment is same. It is because of vocal abuse. So you'll ask the patient to give voice rest, and you'll ask the patient to do steam inhalation. Understood? And you ask the patient to maintain the vocal hygiene. That means stop smoking, avoid mouth breathing, stop pollutant allergy, stop moving in the cities, take home rest, and prevent the pollutants. So all these three mechanisms is common for vocal nodule, vocal polyp, and Rinke's edema. Okay. Now, what is the surgery? The surgery is also common for all these three. That is for vocal nodule, vocal polyp, for Rinke's edema, the procedure what we will do is microlaryngeal surgery, MLS, microlaryngeal surgery. So students, you have to remember, don't by heart, just use a technical skills. See the mechanism for vocal nodule, vocal polyp, and Rinke's edema is common. It is because of voice abuse. So what the treatment you will ask him to do? You'll ask him to take voice rest. You will ask him to do steam inhalation. You will ask him to stop the smoking and avoid the pollutants. That is a non-medical treatment. So what is medical treatment? For all these three, the medical surgical treatment is common. The surgical treatment is we'll use microlaryngeal surgery, MLS. But the methodology of the surgery is different. But the instrument what you will use is, the procedure what you will do is microlaryngeal surgery. And the investigation of choice for vocal nodule, vocal polyp, and for Rinke's edema is same, that is indirect laryngoscopy or direct laryngoscopy. So what we will do, how we will excise the lesion? By using the microlaryngeal surgery, by doing the microlaryngeal surgery, and by using the micro scissors, I am cutting this vocal nodules, bilateral vocal nodules. This is excision of the vocal nodules by using micro scissors, and the surgery name is microlaryngeal surgery. Okay. So what we'll advise after surgery, we'll advise the patient to keep absolute voice rest. And if he's a singer, we'll ask him, don't sing for at least for 1 week, or for a teacher we'll say, don't teach at least for 1 week. So now we'll go for vocal polyp. So the mechanism of vocal polyp is also same. It is because of voice abuse, and the fluid is accumulated in the Rinke space. The fluid is accumulated in the Rinke space in the subepithelial layer. But what is happening here? After the formation of the fluid, that fluid will be sealed by the fibrous tissue. So formation of the fluid and sealing of the fluid by the fibrous tissue will give rise to a lesion which is called as vocal polyp. So vocal polyp is accumulation of fluid in the subepithelial layer, that is below the squamous layer, followed by ingrowth of the connective tissue, ingrowth of the collagen tissue. So one thing you have to remember, that 90% of the vocal polyps are unilateral, and 90% of the vocal polyps are solitary. Yes or no? When we come to vocal nodule, 90% of the vocal nodule are bilateral, and 90% of the vocal nodule are solitary. So 90% of the vocal nodule are solitary and bilateral, and 90% of the vocal polyps are unilateral and solitary. Okay, they may be pedunculated or sessile. Pedunculated means there will be some structure to support it. Okay, sessile means there won't be any base. So if there is a base, it is called as pedunculated. If there is no base, it is called as sessile. So what is the most common site of vocal polyp? The most common site of vocal polyp is near the anterior commissure. What is the anterior commissure? Anterior commissure is a site. See, think this is the thyroid cartilage. Anterior commissure is the site where the vocal cords are attached. So the site where the vocal cords are attached to the thyroid cartilage, it is called as anterior commissure. So the vocal polyp is most common site of vocal polyp is at the anterior commissure. So what is the etiology? It is because of voice abuse, and which or smoking, which leads to breakage of the capillaries in the Rinke space, which leads to extravasation of the blood and the fluid into the Rinke space, which leads to edema. This edema and hematoma later will undergo fibrosis, leading to polyp formation. So what are the symptoms? Common symptoms for everything: vocal nodule, vocal polyp, and Rinke's edema. The common symptoms, that is nothing but hoarseness of voice. Why we see dyspnea and the large polyp? If it is a large polyp, if the large polyp will obstruct the vocal space, if it obstructs the glottic space, it is the large polyp. Think, this is the large polyp. This large polyp is obstructing the glottic space, then the patient will have stridor. Stridor means difficulty in breathing. What is a stridor? Stridor is a high-pitched sound due to obstruction of the upper airways, due to obstruction of the larynx. So obstruction of the larynx will give rise to noisy breathing, high pitched noisy breathing due to obstruction of the larynx, which is called as stridor. So the patient, if the large polyp obstructs the vocal cord, it creates dyspnea, difficulty in breathing along with stridor. Then what is diplophonia? Diplophonia is two pitched sound. If the sound has two pitches, if the sound has two pitch, it is called as diplophonia. It is called as diplophonia. Okay, so the symptoms of the vocal polyp is dyspnea if it is a large polyp. If it is a small polyp, it will cause hoarseness of voice because it is obstructing the vocal cords. If the polyp is large, it is obstructing the glottic space, causing stridor. So what are the different types of vocal polyps? It is gelatinous. That means if only the edematous fluid enters into the subepithelial space, it is called as gelatinous. What is hemorrhagic? Apart from the edematous fluid, if the blood also enters into the subepithelial space, it is called as hemorrhagic. So vocal polyps are of three types. One is gelatinous. If only edematous fluid enters, it is hemorrhagic. If edematous fluid along with if blood enters into the subepithelial space, it is called as hemorrhagic. If only fluid enters, it is called as gelatinous. If blood enters, it is called as hemorrhagic. If both fluid along with blood, if it enters into the subepithelial space, it is called as transitional or mixed. So there are three types of vocal polyps. The one is gelatinous if it only edematous fluid enters into the Rinke space. It is hemorrhagic if blood enters into the Rinke space, and if both fluid and blood enters into the Rinke space, it is called as mixed. So this is the vocal polyp. The vocal polyp is unilateral. This is the anther commissure. Anther commissure is a place where the vocal cords attach to the thyroid cartilage. So the site of the vocal polyp is at the anther commissure. Anther commissure, 90% are solitary, 90% are unilateral. 90% are solitary and 90% are unilateral. It is present at the anther commissure. So what is surgery? Surgery is common for vocal nodule, vocal polyp, and Rinke's edematous. The name of the surgery is microlaryngeal surgery. Microlaryngeal surgery. So there are two procedures. One is microflap approach, and second one is truncation approach. So if they ask what is the non-pharmacological therapy for vocal polyp, the non-pharmacological therapy for vocal polyp is stop the voice abuse, give rest to the voice, do steam inhalation, avoid cigarette smoking, avoid pollution. That means avoid the travel, outdoor travel. These are all the remedies which you have to take to treat the vocal nodules, polyps, and Rinke's edema. And the surgical procedure for all of these three is microlaryngeal surgery. Microlaryngeal surgery. There are two types of technique for vocal polyp. That is microflap approach and truncation approach. What is microflap approach? Just you give an incision on the epithelium and enter into the subepithelial space. Okay, and you excise this edematous tissue, or if it is a gelatinous type, you excise the edematous tissue. If it is a haematomatous polyp, you remove the blood. If it is mixed, you remove the edematous fluid along with the blood clot. This is called as excision of the polyp. And after excision of the polyp, if there is any excess of the epithelium, why there is excess of the epithelium? Because of the stretching of the epithelium, there is excess layer of the epithelium. So you cut the excess layer of the epithelium. You cut the excess layer of the epithelium. This is the cutting of the excess layer of the epithelium, and you approximate it. You approximate the flap. So what is the technique? This is called as flap technique. This is called as microflap technique. In microflap technique, what you're doing, you're giving incision on the epithelium. After giving incision on the epithelium, you are removing the blood clot, or you are removing the gelatinous material or edematous fluid. After removing the fluid, you are removing the excess of the epithelium. This is the excess of the epithelium, which is because of stretching. You remove the excess of the epithelium. After removing the excess of the epithelium, just approximate both the layers. This is the technique of free flap technique, or this is called as microflap technique. Then what is the second one? That is called as truncation approach. In truncation approach, you hold the polyp by using the forceps, micro forceps, and you cut the polyp by using the micro scissors. So by using the microforceps and by using the cupped forceps or microforceps, holding the polyp and cutting the polyp at the base, it is called as truncation approach. So truncation approach is used for polypectomy. So this is the polyp where we are seeing. So I am holding the polyp by using the forceps and I am cutting at the base. This is called as truncation approach. And we can also do the microlaryngeal surgery by using a laser. Use the laser beam and cut the polyp at the base. So by doing this, we can prevent the recurrence and we can minimize the bleed by using the laser surgery. So right now we'll stop here. So we have discussed about the vocal nodules and vocal polyps. So students, so can anyone say vocal nodule? What is the most common site of vocal nodule? Most common site of vocal nodule. Most common site of vocal nodule. Please answer. What is the most common site of vocal nodule? At the junction of anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3. Why it is located there? Why it is located at anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3? Maximum approximation or maximum vibration of the vocal cords occurs at the anterior 1/3 and posterior 2/3 of the vocal cord. Then what is the most common site of vocal polyp? Vocal polyp. Vocal polyp. What is the most common site? The most common site of vocal polyp is anterior commissure. Anterior commissure. So what is the investigation of choice for vocal polyp, vocal nodule, and the Ringis edema? What is the investigation of choice? That investigation of choice. Direct laryngoscopy. Excellent. Direct and indirect laryngoscopy. What is the treatment of choice for vocal nodule, vocal polyp, and Ringis edema? What is the treatment of choice? What is the name of the choice? What is the name of the treatment? Excellent. It is not microlaryngoscopy. It is microlaryngeal surgery. Microlaryngeal surgery. It's called as microlaryngeal surgery. Okay. So in vocal nodules, what are the layers involved in vocal nodules? Layers involved in vocal nodules. It is epithelium layer and Ringis space. Ringis space is formed by. Ringis space is formed by. Ringis space is formed by. Any answer? Ringis space is formed by superficial layer of the lamina propria. So Ringis space is formed by the superficial layer of the lamina propria. In vocal nodule, there is involvement of epithelium along with superficial layer of the lamina propria, which is nothing but your Ringis space. So what we are doing there in vocal nodule, we are excising the vocal nodule completely. We are excising the vocal nodule completely by elevating the flap, microflap technique. We are elevating the microflap and we are removing the nodule from the vocal cord. But in vocal polyp, what we are doing, we are removing the hematoma, or we can directly remove the vocal polyp. That surgery is called as, by cutting at the base, we can remove the vocal polyp. The name of the surgery, what I am saying about the vocal polyp is truncation surgery. Truncation surgery. Okay. Then what is the difference between the vocal polyp and vocal nodule? Vocal nodule and vocal polyp, the difference is which is solitary? Is the vocal nodule solitary or vocal polyp solitary? Both are solitary. Yes or no? Which is bilateral? Vocal nodule or vocal polyp? Which is bilateral? Nodule is bilateral, whereas vocal polyp is unilateral. Then what is the Ringis edema? Is it unilateral or bilateral? Ringis edema is bilateral. Then what is the difference between vocal nodule and vocal polyp? Then what is the difference between vocal nodule and vocal polyp? Vocal nodule is bilateral, but vocal polyp is okay, maybe pediculated or maybe sessile. When I'm saying that vocal nodule is bilateral, the vocal polyp is unilateral. So students, I hope that you have understood today's topic, that is benign lesions of the larynx, that is vocal nodule and vocal polyp. If you have any doubts, please ask me. Any doubts? Any doubts? Doubts means internal marks. Soon, within 1 week, 10 days, internal marks. We'll announce your internal marks. Any doubts? Rather from internal marks. Apart from internal marks, any doubts? Any doubts? No more doubts. How are you studying, everyone? Are you studying or enjoying this corona? Will be announced. Key for internal paper will be announced soon, within 5 to 7 days. So leave it off. How you are preparing for your exams? How you are studying ENT, SPM, and ophthalmology? How you are preparing? Are you feeling any difficulty in studying? Please let me know. Any difficulty in studying ENT? Any difficulty in studying the final year part 2 subjects? Are you studying? Are you studying or not? If you study, you will get difficulty. If you are not studying, no difficulty. Only relaxation you will get. You will be the happiest person in the world if you won't study. Are you studying or not? See, you are having a good time spending in the house. Due to corona, you are having good time spending with parents. Yes, someone said you are feeling difficulty in SPM. Okay, so my kind advice is, first you have to love SPM subject. First you love the SPM subject, and after loving the SPM subject, you'll understand everything. If you won't love SPM subject, if you won't like SPM subject, you cannot read the SPM subject. You'll feel it very bored. What is the septic tanks? They are asking what is the capacity of the septic tank. What is the capacity of the septic tank? What is the capacity? Can anybody say? Capacity of the septic tank? You don't know. 50 gallons. 50 gallons. Okay, first you enjoy the subject. If you won't enjoy the subject, you cannot remember anything. See, and not only the enjoying, you have to keep some blind codes or some points so that you can keep it in the mind. Example, tiger mosquito. What is tiger mosquito in SPM? Tiger mosquito. What is tiger mosquito in SPM? Tiger mosquito in SPM. No, not Culex. No, not. Yes, Aedes. Aedes is called as tiger mosquito. Why it is called as tiger mosquito? Aedes, on the legs of the mosquito, there is a stripings, which looks like stripes on the tiger. That is called as tiger mosquito. See, Aedes. Remember that Aedes is AIDS. So in AIDS, we used to say, మనం ఏం చెప్తాం, పులి రాజాకి ఎయిడ్స్ వస్తుందా అని. పులి రాజాకి ఎయిడ్స్ వస్తుందా? That is a caption when AIDS during late 90s. Puli Raja ki AIDS vastunda. So Puli Raja is tiger. AIDS is Aedes mosquito. So Puli Raja tiger and Aedes is AIDS. So Aedes. Aedes is present in which type of water? Artificial water. Where it is found? Aedes is found in stagnant artificial water. That is artificial water means you take the thumbs up or you take some ice cream cups and you leave it outside. The rain will fall into the ice cream cups, and that ice cream artificial collection of water is helpful for the formation of growth of the Aedes larva. So Aedes is present in ADC is present in artificial water. Where Culex will be present? Culex. Dirty water. Culex means kullipoyindi. Dirty. That is nothing but edana kullipothe dane antaru dirty antaru. So Culex is present in dirty water. Dirty water. So if you love the subject, you won't forget. I'll tell you one example. Primordial prevention, primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention. Primordial prevention means there is zero. Primordial. O is zero. So primordial means there is no risk factor. There is no risk factor. There is no disease. So primordial prevention. So what you will do in primordial prevention? You will maintain your healthy habits. You will do exercise and you maintain your healthy habits and you prevent entry of the risk factors into the environment. Primary prevention. Primary means one. The one and the only hero has entered. That is the risk factor. The only risk factor has entered, but there is no disease. Only risk factor entered. Primary means one. Okay, so primary prevention is only risk factor has entered. So what you have to do? You have to prevent that risk factor. You have to prevent that risk factor, and you have to protect yourself from the disease by using the mosquito nets. The risk factor is outside. That is, risk factor is mosquito is outside. So you have to wear the mosquito mats, and you have to use the repellents, and you have to use the chemoprophylaxis like what chemoprophylaxis drugs like chloroquine before you are going into the endemic areas. So chemoprophylaxis and your protectives like mosquito mats, they are primary prevention. You are preventing the risk factor from entering into your body, but risk factor is present in the society. Then what is secondary prevention? Secondary prevention is both risk factor is present and the disease is present. Add the risk factor and add the disease. If both are present, that is called as secondary prevention. Then how you will prevent the secondary prevention? By doing the diagnostic tests, rapid diagnosis and treatment. Rapid diagnosis and treatment is a secondary prevention. But chemoprophylaxis, what is prophylaxis? Prophylaxis is given before the disease emerges. That is, before the disease has onset, you are giving prophylaxis. So prophylaxis is a protection. So protection is nothing but your primary prevention. That is, only risk factor is there. You are protecting from the risk factor. But when we come to secondary prevention, there is both risk factor and the disease. So we have to protect us from the disease. So how we will eliminate the disease? We have to get the disease by using the investigations like screening mechanisms like mammography or investigation of the CT chest to rule out whether we are suffering from corona or not, or doing the throat swab test to see whether we are having corona by doing RT-PCR. So your investigations and treatment are secondary prevention. Tertiary prevention. What is tertiary prevention? Tertiary prevention is risk factor is present, disease is present, and you have already suffered from disease and you are having disability. You are having disability. So disability limitation because of disease and risk factor is nothing but your tertiary prevention. Tertiary prevention is rehabilitation. You have to rehabilitate the patient. So primary prevention is zero, no risk factor. Primary prevention is risk factor, no disease. Secondary prevention is risk factor and disease. Tertiary prevention is risk factor, disease, and disability. You have to limit the disability. That is a tertiary prevention. So students, you remember in an easy way so that you can make it easy. Keep some blind codes. కొన్ని బ్లైండ్ కోడ్స్ పెట్టుకోండి, కొన్ని బ్లైండ్ గా, కొన్ని లాజికల్ గా ఆలోచించి ఎస్పీఎం చదవండి, ఎంజాయ్ చేస్తూ చదవండి, హ్యాపీగా చదవండి ఎస్పీఎం ని. దెన్ యూ విల్ డెఫినెట్లీ come out with flying colors. SPM లో మీకు ఏమైనా అర్థం అవ్వలేదంటే you can just contact me. I can give you some blind proofs or I can give some blind codes so that you can easily remember the SPM. Just study it logically. When I was in undergraduation student, I used to hate the SPM because very difficult to study it. But during the PG preparation, I kept my whole heart in studying the SPM subject. Till now, I remember nearly 90% of the SPM, 90 to 100% of the SPM topic, because just I love the SPM subject. Please love the SPM. Don't hate the ENT subject. You love ENT subject also. Apart from loving the ENT subject, you love the SPM subject also, and definitely you'll come out with flying colors. Okay, SPM is very, very, very important topic. Nearly 30 bits from the entrance examination. Major part of the any entrance exams, major part is played only by SPM, social and preventive medicine. Okay, so I'm giving my contact number. So students, please study during this free hours. Don't waste time. Okay, you won't get this valuable time. Okay, so I have posted my mobile number. So if you have any problem, please contact me. Is sore throat related to COVID? Sore throat is related. Sore throat has many etiologies. So the throat, for throat, sore throat, there are many factors which cause sore throat. It is because of GRD. It may be because of throat infections, because of streptococci. COVID also is one of the reason. But if there is sore throat, don't directly jump into COVID. See, the important signs of symptoms of COVID is anosmia, loss of smell, anosmia, fever with, it is a viral fever, fever with body pains, retroorbital pain, body pains, anosmia, and most commonly the patient is having asthenia, weakness. Asthenia is nothing but weakness, headache. Okay, next retroorbital pain, and muscle cramps, along with fever with, sometimes if the temperature is more than 100 or 101, the patient will have fever with chills. Okay, then you can go for throat swab, RT-PCR or nasopharyngeal swab. No need to panic. Okay, if you take good remedies by doing steam inhalation and by taking hot water, you can easily get cured. Along with the medications, you'll get easily cured. So don't get upset. Okay, I posted my number. If I'm not getting, if you're not able to contact my number, I'll just tell you. Please note down. My mobile number is 9247 9247 661970. 9247 661970. So students, if you have any difficulty regarding your preparation or regarding the exams, you are free to contact me at any time, and I'll definitely help you. Okay, thank you very much. అయిపోయింది వచ్చాను బయటకు వచ్చేస్తాను ఓకే